The Galactic Archaeological Institute's greatest mystery sat in a climate-controlled vault on Sentinel Prime, protected by 12 layers of security and studied by the finest xenolinguists in known space. The artifact was a data crystal, perfectly preserved, containing what appeared to be tactical documentation in an extinct language that predated every known civilization by millennia. Dr. Jakar had devoted her entire career to deciphering it. The insectoid researcher had published 17 papers on the subject, each one generating more questions than answers. The syntax was brutal, efficient. The content spoke of strategies, coordinates, and something the translators could only approximate as operational doctrines. Most disturbing were the references to weapons and tactics that seemed impossibly advanced. Yet the language structure suggested a culture that should have been primitive by comparison. "It's the great paradox," Jakar explained to her research team during their weekly meeting. "The sophistication of the warfare described doesn't match the era. Either our dating is catastrophically wrong, or this civilization achieved military technology far beyond their time before mysteriously vanishing." The crystal had been discovered 300 years ago on a dead world in the outer reach, buried beneath geological layers that dated it to approximately 12,000 standard years old. In galactic terms, that made it ancient beyond measure. The Zerathi, oldest of the spacefaring races, had only achieved interstellar travel 8,000 years ago. Jakar's mandibles clicked in frustration as she reviewed the latest analysis. They had identified 847 unique symbols, mapped 3,200 probable word combinations, and created 17 competing grammatical frameworks. Yet the document remained stubbornly opaque, offering only fragments of meaning that refused to cohere into understanding. Everything changed on a seemingly ordinary afternoon. The humans had recently achieved faster-than-light travel and were making their diplomatic rounds through the Institute. They were young as a species, barely 2 centuries into their space age, but they had quickly gained a reputation for being unsettlingly adaptable and disturbingly good at warfare, a talent most civilized species had evolved past. Commander Sarah, Chen was part of the human diplomatic contingent. A career military officer turned cultural liaison, she had the weathered look common to human veterans, with gray threading through her dark hair and eyes that seemed older than her face. She was touring the Institute out of polite obligation when she paused at the viewing window of Jakar's lab. "What's that?" Chen asked, her tone casual. Jakar launched into her standard explanation, the one she'd given 1,000 times to visitors and dignitaries. The ancient civilization, the inexplicable military sophistication, the centuries of failed translation attempts. Chen stepped closer to the display, her expression shifting from polite interest to something else entirely. Her eyes narrowed, her jaw tightened. "Can you show me more of the text?" she asked quietly. Jakar obliged, cycling through several passages on the holographic display. The human's face had gone pale. "Commander Chen, are you unwell? I need to see the original crystal. Now." There was something in the human's voice that made Jakar's instincts prickle. She led Chen through security protocols that took 40 minutes to complete. When they finally stood before the artifact itself, Chen stared at it for a long moment. Then she laughed, a short, bitter sound. "You've got to be kidding me," Chen muttered. She turned to Jakar. "This isn't an ancient language. This is English, military English specifically. And it's not 12,000 years old. It's from Earth, probably late 21st or early 22nd century, based on the terminology and format." Jakar's translator struggled with the implications. "Impossible. Our dating is picking up the geological age of where it was buried, not the age of the crystal itself," Chen interrupted. "And I should know what it says because..." She took a breath. "I wrote this, or rather I wrote the original version of whatever this is. The silence in the vault was absolute. I'm going to need a neural interface," Chen continued, her voice taking on the clipped precision of a briefing, "and someone who can transcribe. This document is Field Manual 30, Combined Arms Operations, with what looks like tactical annexes I personally authored for the Mars sovereignty conflict in 2184. I was a lieutenant colonel then. These are my operational orders." Over the next 6 hours, Commander Chen dictated a complete translation of the document that had stumped the galaxy's greatest minds for 3 centuries. She explained the doctrinal frameworks, the tactical symbols, The references to combined arms integration and multi-domain operations. She pointed out her own signature coding style in the tactical decision matrices. But how? Jakar finally asked. How did a document from your recent history end up buried in geological strata dating back 12 millennia? Chen's expression was grim. That's what we need to figure out. Because either someone took this from Earth and deliberately planted it to look ancient, or... She paused. Or time works differently than we think it does. And humanity's military history is somehow older and stranger than any of us knew. As news of the translation spread through the Institute, the implications rippled outward. The humans, barely 2 centuries into space travel, had been writing tactical doctrine that looked impossibly advanced to species who had been spacefaring for millennia. The Zarathi military academies had been studying these ancient tactics for decades, trying to understand the mysterious warrior culture that had created them. Dr. Jakar watched as Commander Chen prepared to leave, the human veteran who had casually solved the galaxy's greatest archaeological puzzle in an afternoon. Commander, Jakar called out, in your culture, what does this mean? To find your own words written in the deep past? Chen was quiet for a moment. In my culture, Doctor, we'd say someone's been messing with the timeline. And in my experience, that's never good news. She walked toward the exit, then paused and looked back. You might want to check if there are any more ancient human artifacts in your archives. Because if my field manual is here, I guarantee it's not the only thing that shouldn't exist yet. As the vault door sealed behind her, Jakar felt something she hadn't experienced in decades of research. Genuine fear. The mystery hadn't been solved. It had only gotten deeper, and somewhere in the archives, 17 more ancient artifacts waited, each one marked with a designation the xenolinguists had never been able to translate. United Earth Military Command.